My name is Adelle Onyango. I am an evolving African woman. And what I do is quite a few things. My background is media. So I was in radio for a couple of years. And then I quit to start my digital media platform, whose first production is Legally Clueless, that exists as an audio podcast, a video series, and a tour series that amplifies stories by Africans with a bias to African women, of course. And and then I also run an initiative, which is the Adelle Onyango Initiative, whose main focus at this moment is connecting African women and girls who have survived sexual violence to our flagship program, which is Safe 247, a free group therapy program that takes 14 weeks, just to kind of give survivors the tools needed to navigate psychologically healing. Outside of that, I'm a poet. Um, I used to a long time ago perform, and then now I've recently gotten back to it, but I've been writing all through. And I also have just recently written a book. So I'm an author, and I wrote a book with another amazing Kenyan woman called Lanji that is focused on amplifying stories of survivors of sexual violence in the greater Eastern African region from pre-colonial times to present day. It's called Our Broken Silence. And yeah, I talk a lot in various spaces, but mainly around those things, the experience of African women and Africans in general, and specifically issues around sexual violence. Yeah. The most exciting thing about my work. It's so hard to say because I love that I'm no longer an employee. Because if you asked me that question when I was employed, I could easily tell you it would be like 10:01 when I'm done with my show. And like now I can relax. Because back then days were so alike and so structured, right? But right now, I think the most exciting thing is that I never know what's gonna happen, right? So like I I never know when I'm going to travel. I literally could just get an email today and be like, hey, there's this thing happening next week in I don't know what country. And that's always, even just that adrenaline of visa, COVID test. It's something. It's exciting. It's a bit stressful, but it's exciting. And I think that to me is really awesome. It's also exciting, I think, when we look at what I do with my podcast, recording African stories is like wild, right? Because first, we get so lost in our own little bubbles and we think like our stories, how everybody's stories are, and like our realities, how everybody's realities is, our values are what other people's values are, and that's not the case. So I've recorded people who are really deep Christians or deeply religious, which I'm not. I've recorded somebody who is inhabited by a spirit of an ancestor that was in Zimbabwe, and you know it's exciting because you just never know what you're going to get, but you leave recording those stories expanded because then you understand like your role in this world is like and your reality is also very tiny. That that's also a very exciting bit about the work that I do. Yeah. It might not be a lesson, but an acknowledgement and a realization that you are enough as you are. I think when you're in space, especially spaces where you're creating, there's like what's it called? Sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm creating and it's really fulfilling, but it's not like that person who's like really advancing or whatever. It's not like this one that is really loved. Or am I creating in the right way? Am I too weird? Am I dreaming too big and I don't have Beyonce budget? You know what I mean? So I wish especially coming from like traditional media or being in traditional media, that first is a very emotionally violent space for all, and then even more emotionally violent for women and Black women in that regard. I do know there were quite a few times I felt less than and like I'm not enough as I am, or I don't have opinions on enough things. And being there for 10 years, even now, I have to really do a lot of work to like kind of like not listen to those voices from back then. Um, and the reason why I say that's an important lesson is that it governs everything. It governs how you'll create, what you'll create, if you'll create, or if you'll give up or not. And I think if you start from a space of I'm valid as I am, then now you're already working from abundance, right? And only great things can come from there. I wish I knew that. I like even as early as like high school. I wish. I'm not sure if it's like in a book or it's from what somebody has said. I'm pretty sure somebody has said it to me though. Um, but maybe it's also from my experience. It's just like we really underestimate the unsexy things like consistency, like showing up, like doing the work. We put a lot of emphasis on the sexy things, which is like, oh, the finished right thing and whatever. Um, I think the day to day is so important, and the day to day is filled with consistently showing up, consistently doing the work that is not sexy or exciting at all. And that those days are what give birth to the sexy bits. So there is no product or whatever without this. And I feel like I sound like a mother, like traditional African mother, put in the work. But essentially, it is that. And you'll have to do it repeatedly every single day on the days that you're heartbroken for whatever reasons, on the day you're not feeling well, on the day you will still have to do that not exciting part of your work consistently every day. And even when you're successful, guess what? You still have to keep that, it's so it just never ends, right? But it's I think even I underestimated that part. And now I'm beginning to acknowledge like those are important bits. They teach you discipline. They teach you to know the ins and out of your craft. Nobody can hoodwink you. And they are just as important as the sexy bits when everything is flourishing and successful. Yeah. First, I hate cooking. Let's just start there. I am not domesticated in any way, shape, or form, and I am not apologetic about it. But anything that has chicken, though, like that's how you win me over. Like just chicken. Even if you've burnt it. At least if a new chicken passed by here, I'll appreciate. So I'm not a foodie, I'm not into cooking, but I'm really into eating chicken. I don't reward myself with a drink if I've had a good day. But when I'm meeting up with my girlfriends, I'm always going to take either like a classic mojito, um, where like like everything needs to be so fresh in it that not only do I know it's fresh, I can even sense which farm some of the things were. If you have your mint or whatever. Um, so for me, it has to be like super fresh, like, and then don't jazza it with ice, trying to confuse me so that you can save your liquor. Don't do that, please. I'm paying. So I'll always go for a classic mojito or like a passion mojito if I'm like, let's try something, whatever. But that's always my go-to. That's my go-to drink. If I've had a bad day, anything whiskey based, man, like anything whiskey based. I have learned that I actually really like whiskey to begin with, and And I've grown to learn that it's not just like a man's drink, and that you don't only have to have it on the rocks. I'm just like, whatever, shut up. I can have it however I want it. Um, so like you could add your orange juice, you could add like a syrup. And then I learned how you burn the rosemary, and you look like a professional, like shh. On a bad day, I might not go to that extent, because also you're like, I want to sit and wallow, you know? But I think when I'm feeling a bit stronger in emotion, good or bad, I will go for like something whiskey based.